This is a slightly different podcast from what we usually do at IDC inside the room. We are at the Baselworld. This is the biggest watch show in the world. It's a completely different world from what we usually see at the CES or MWC. But we had very good meetings, didn't we?
Yeah, definitely. So, although there weren't a lot of announcements around wearable technology this year, the sentiment beneath all the watch vendors, especially with the watch vendors that operate below $1,000,
Exactly.
the sentiment is that smartwatches are something that they cannot ignore anymore, either in their strategies as they continue through the traditional watch path, and if they're considering to enter in the wearables world.
Yeah, that's definitely what I totally agree. The brands like the Rolex or Chanel or Breitling, they are probably not yet feeling the pressure and feeling the impact from the growth of this new category, smartwatches and hybrids or connected watches. But the lower end of the market and lower end of the market in this industry means below $2,000, $1,000. Those are really feeling the pressure. And interestingly enough, those are the ones that are trying to understand how they can go a step further and not just enter this space. They have decided they need to be in this space, even if they haven't made any public announcement yet. But clearly they are looking to the space and trying to understand how they can compete as well.
Exactly, but I think the main question in entering the space from a traditional watch vendor perspective is, how do I get into the space without compromising all the legacy that's behind me?
Yeah.
Some of the best practices among the major players are still not adapted to the digital world. They do not understand how to profile their customer. They don't have the data to back up their decisions going forward. They have the know-how and the craftsmanship, but they could tailor their decisions much better if they have a target audience in mind and if they understood that the products they're putting out are actually achieving the goal that they were built for.
Exactly, and that's something surprising that we learned this week. And we have hearing this in the previous shows as well. They have no clue to what kind of customers buy their traditional watches. And those who enter already this space, the biggest learning they are basically getting, and the biggest advantage is they now can connect directly to those customers. They understand what kind of customers are buying their products, what they do with their watches, and again, they are getting all this data. And if you remember, we spoke with one of the biggest brands in this space, in the connected watches space, and the CEO was saying they now have more than 1 billion data points, and they are doing correlations to understand what are those areas where they can bring additional features to their customers, to their products, to differentiate their products. And this is very interesting, and this is a very strong opportunity. All the data and all the artificial intelligence they can use that data to develop their new device and new products and watches.
Exactly. So I think there has to be a marriage between both. So if the tech world wants to come to the traditional watch market, they can't come with only their own terms. They have to understand what's happening on the other side of the fence. The same way that traditional watchmakers have to understand what are the tech requirements
and the challenges
and the
investments
challenge
required.
exactly that the tech world had to go through to have a ready, key in hand product, so to speak, for them to use in a relatively short time.
And some of other consumer electronic brands like Apple, they are not just consumer electronic brands, they are fashion brands. If you think where Apple is basically opening their stores, it's in the most expensive streets, in the most expensive cities in the world. They are close to the brands like Chanel or Prada or the other stores, other brands like fashion brands. And that's the biggest challenge, is how to compete with consumer electronic brands that are becoming fashionable brands. And that's also the challenge.
Even their watches have a fashion-like cadence. Like there's a
Even
big boom around the product release, and then it kind of rolls
Exactly.
down until the next
But
product
looking
release.
particularly at what we hear and what we saw about some of the announcements, we saw, for instance, Tag Heuer launching a golf edition of the connected smartwatch. What do you make of it?
I think it's an interesting approach to the differentiation piece we were talking before. So if Tag knows how their customer base is like and knows what their preferences are, they created a micro app. First of all, to have a closer and more direct relationship with their end users, which is very important to understand the customer base, not have all the data go through Wear OS, so they can engage directly, but also to differentiate themselves. So that application will be available in the Apple Watch, because it's
for a monthly fee
for
of
a monthly
$50?
subscription. Yeah, of course,
I'm sorry, an annual subscription of $50.
exactly. But it will not be available in any other Wear OS device.
And interestingly, they are also trying to expand the revenue stream. If there are 100 million golf players, if they manage to attract a minor percentage of that number of players, it's a quite interesting revenues that can easily represent millions every year just through the app and just through Apple Watch users, which at some point may realize that why not buying a Tag Heuer Golf Edition with all the features that offers to golf players.
Yeah, Apple has models in the same price ranges, like the EMEA models, and previously in the Apple Watch Edition models, they were playing for the same target customer, and that's probably why Tag also made available the application.
Another interesting brand that we visited is Frederic Constant. Last year they had this Alpina X on Kickstarter, a massive success. They managed to achieve over 3,000 units in that specific campaign in a couple of weeks, if that long, and they sold as much through their normal channels of that specific watch. And this year they released, or they will release the most popular versions as different variants of the watch. So and they also understand very well what their customers do. So
exactly.
it's about now trying from those learnings, trying to adapt their products to what their customers really want, and that's the biggest advantage of the connectivity they get and the data they get from the products they sell.
Yeah, Frédéric Constant and Alpina, they've been doing a great job. They keep their traditional values and their design language in their traditional watches. They continue having their watch business, but they were bold enough to put forward the ideas and the products to address this nascent smartwatch market. So the collaboration with MMT Swiss Connect, the platform that's behind some of these watches from Frédéric Constant, from Alpina, from Mondaine, from Salvatore Ferragamo, some of these players are more engaged in the space than others, but what we're seeing is a platform that's constantly evolving, that understands both sides, both the technology challenges,
the traditional customers with the new
exactly
customers.
And actually it understands, since it was a joint venture with Frédéric Constant in its inception, it understands the challenges for their customers to actually implement a product like this, and it has an end-to-end solution.
Exactly. So we will continue to see many interesting developments. We are starting to see partnerships between different companies, like Fossil announced with Citizen and other types of partnerships. So this is an industry that is not dying, correct?
Let me just say, I think it's an industry to watch.
That's a good point. And on that tone, I think we'll close this podcast. Thank you very much for your time, and let's enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank
you.